Thank you. It's an honour to be here, and thank you very much for inviting me. I'm delighted to be able to have the chance to speak about the work that I've been doing over the last, well, probably more than a decade now, and especially as some of my crew are here too, and they can chip in or they can add something as we go along. So this is what I'm going to speak about. I'm going to speak about celebrating positive, contributing lives as older, valued citizens. I'm going to cover the history of the work that I've done and the Scottish Older People's Assembly, and well, I'll give you some examples of some of the work that we've been doing. So in terms of celebrating positive, contributing lives as older and valued citizens, stereotypically, older people are sometimes regarded as delayed discharges, bed blockers, a burden to society, a statistic. But I know from my experience, and I'm sure you'll know too, that this is not the case. Older people are grandparents, and of course they provide a very good service to their families, and many grandparents these days are supporting families, their own children, enabling them to get out to work. Older people are workers as well, and many people are actually working well into their 60s and beyond 60. Many older people are carers and looking after their families, and younger people as carers. And a lot of people who are older looking after those with dementia. And grandparents as kinship carers. Some people don't know a lot about this. We raised this as an issue at the last Older People's Assembly, and people were saying to us that they hadn't really understood and appreciated that there was a growing number of older people as kinship carers looking after their grandchildren because their own children were either in prison or had drug or mental health problems or alcohol problems. And of course there are lots of older people who are volunteers, and for a long time, unsung heroes. Older people sitting on boards of voluntary organisations and carrying out a whole different range of voluntary work. And the people that I've been working with over the last decade have come as volunteers as well. And older people as entrepreneurs. I'm sure this list is not new, you'll know about all of these things, but it's really just to put into perspective that older people should be regarded as people who have assets and make contributions. So in terms of the history, connections and benefits, the Scottish Older People's Assembly history, I suppose, began in 1997, and it was the Strathclyde Elderly Forum who organised a meeting at Stirling University and called it the Pensioners' Parliament. A lot of older people came to this, and there were discussions about how important it was that older people should come together and have a voice and be challenging or critical or contributing to policies and service developments. In terms of the Scottish Parliament, that came about in 1999, and of course this sort of heralded engagement and the participation of citizens in general, but also older people. And Malcolm Chisholm, who held a key role at this time, he really wanted to make sure that older people had a key place. In 2000, the Edinburgh's Plan for Older People was launched. And in 2001, we had the Better Government for Older People. This was a UK initiative and started in Westminster, but it really asked local authorities around the country to recognise older people as citizens, and not just as a recipients of health and social care. And there was an emphasis on the engagement and contributions of older people. And in 2002, we had the Older People's Consultative Forum. So older people came together, met with the government, and they started to form the first sort of general engagement with the government and its policies in Scotland. In 2007, a holistic strategy came about called All Our Futures. This is a strategy to recognise that Scotland's population is ageing. But again, one of the good things about it was that it didn't just recognise older people as the recipients of health and social care. It had a holistic approach, and it really wanted to build on the fact that older people were assets. And then in 2009, there was the first Scottish Older People's Assembly. This was held in the Scottish Parliament, and it was organised by Age Scotland. So I'll tell you a little bit about the plan for older people. This came about in order to use older people's skills and knowledge to make Edinburgh a better place and to prevent ill health. And in the early days of this plan development, older people were engaged, they were consulted, and they were asked for their opinions about what issues were important to them. I know about this because I was involved in it. Older people have been actively involved in the planning and the implementation, the evaluation, the mainstreaming of the plan, which was launched in 2000. We had a review of different services of the council and also NHS, and from that this plan was developed. It's a joint arrangement between older people, Edinburgh Council, the National Health Service and the voluntary and commercial organisations. And it had a first action plan from 2000 to 2005, and then a second action plan from 2007 to 2010. Over the last few years, we've been looking at the importance of mainstreaming the actions because various other policies have been developed and have kind of taken over some of these issues. So I'm still working on the plan, and I'm still working with a group of older people who I'll tell you about, and we're mainstreaming these key areas. This chart represents the kind of holistic nature of the whole plan. It covers just about everything. But this came about in 2000. So it covers lifelong learning, transport, community safety, community care issues, person-centred planning, recognising that we have people from the black minority ethnic community, people have dementia, mental health. The plan in its original state had about 93 tasks and 21 strategic aims. I was appointed to implement the plan, but there was no budget attached to this. I had to work through existing structures and mechanisms and work across the council and with colleagues in the National Health Service and the voluntary sector to raise the profile of older people and to engage them in various developments. So in terms of the connections, we organised an advisory group of older people. And in the early days, it was called the Older People's Equality Forum, but it's now called a City for All Ages Advisory Group. And the purpose of this is to discuss and challenge and contribute to Edinburgh's plan for older people. And the people on the group have also made many contributions to other policy and service developments in the city, either with the National Health Service, the voluntary sector, or other departments in the council. The people and the group is linked to different forums and groups and voluntary organisations in the city. And members of the group, and some of them are here today, have made contributions to a whole variety of pieces of work that have gone on in the city. The Equalities Network, the public participation arrangements, the neighbourhood partnership arrangements, the community councils, the reprovisioning of National Health Service facilities like the Royal Victoria Hospital. We have a joint commissioning plan at the moment, and this is linked into the reshaping care for older people. So people have contributed to that and its development and new service developments as well. We've had connections with the World Heritage Trust and various departments of Edinburgh University, Department of Psychology and other universities too. So we've had a wide-ranging network and involvement of older people. The Joint Older People's Management Group is made up of a variety of people who constitute a joint working group who oversee the development of service implementation and developments within the City of Edinburgh Council and the National Health Service. It meets on a regular basis, and there are older people who are part of from the advisory group who sit on this, and they're able to hear about new developments, and they're able to make their own contributions to anything that's coming along. People have been sitting on this group for a number of years now, and their work has been greatly valued. So here are some of the other examples that we have of the connections that we've made over the years. There have been many connections, probably far too many to give you examples of today, but here's some of them. In the early days of developing the plan, we had to obviously recognise the fact that there is an ageing population of people from the black minority ethnic community in Edinburgh, and so we organised meetings with representatives of these groups. We organised a conference, and for the first time we organised the conference in such a way that people were able to speak in their own languages, and we had translation from Arabic, Urdu and Cantonese and Mandarin, and that was held in the City Chambers, Edinburgh. It was quite a challenge, but it was certainly worthwhile. We made a film as well, asking people for their experiences and their views of services that they were involved in, so we had a whole different range of these, and the film was shown and used. In the early days of the plan, an older person suggested that there was really no information about activities and opportunities for older people, and it was really quite important that we should put something together in one place. So we started to organise the Get Up and Go, and the person who's on the front there is a member of the advisory group for older people, and she's now a member of the committee for the Scottish Older People's Assembly. So from about 2002, the Council has produced a Get Up and Go magazine, and it has a lot of activities and opportunities for older people in the city. Each year this is online as well, so changes can be made to the activities online, and the hard copy comes out once a year. As well as developing this programme, we also decided that we had to have another way of celebrating the fact that older people made a contribution to the life of the city. So we organised awards, and we did this from about 2003, and so each year we've invited people and organisations to nominate either older people or others who've made a contribution to the lives of older people to receive an award. And the older people themselves have received recognition for the work that they've done. So in terms of other connections that we've made over the years, in 2006, Edinburgh became a member of the World Health Organization Global Age-Friendly Cities project. And the reason for this is because midpoint in the plan, we decided that we would gather views from a lot of older people. So we set about, the members of the advisory group, going around the city and gathering views on what was important to older people. We met up with over 1,000 people, and we put this information together, and from that we developed the second action plan. But at the same time, the World Health Organization was developing its project on the Global Age-Friendly Cities work, and we discovered that what they were asking was something very similar to what we had just done. So rather than start the whole process again, we told them about what we were doing, and we asked if we could link into them, and they agreed. So we've had connections to the Global Age-Friendly Cities project, and we're now part of the UK network on Global Age-Friendly Cities. For all of this work, we've been nominated for an award, and we've had a number of awards, and we've been part of European projects as well, in partnership with the Edinburgh Chamber of Commerce. Some of the members of the advisory group have been to Hamburg, and they were able to make a contribution to a European project on the engagement of older people. During the time when All Our Futures came about, it was recognised that there was an important connection to be made between older people and younger people. So intergenerational work was deemed to be really important. So generations working together was established, and this became a kind of Scottish-wide arrangement. And in Edinburgh, we run the Edinburgh and Lothians Intergenerational Network. And from that, we've been linked into the Scottish Older People's Assembly. And we've also had a connection to the the World Congress on Active Ageing. So in terms of monitoring, reviewing and evaluating this work, every year a report about the work has gone to the committee of the council. In the early days we had to present the work to scrutiny panels. We've had independent evaluations, and this has been followed by a revision. And the older people from the advisory group have made contributions to these. In 2010, we had an independent evaluation on impacts and lessons learned and good practice. And this information is on the website. And then more recently, we invited Edinburgh and Napier University to work with the advisory group on older people to develop some information on the participation of older people and the development of policies and services in Edinburgh. And at the moment, we're looking at another review, which is about the mainstreaming of the work. So in terms of the Scottish Older People's Assembly, this started, as I said, in 2009. It's a communication between the governments and Scotland's older people. It's a sounding board for policy affecting older people. And it's about advice from governments, for governments, on identifying and responding to older people's needs and aspirations. And it's a mechanism for feeding back to governments on the impact of policies. It's not just the Scottish Government, but Westminster Government as well. So we've had annual assemblies since 2009, and the first two were organised by Age Scotland. The 2011 assembly was arranged for the Edinburgh International Conference Centre, and this was arranged by myself along with the committee of the Scottish Older People's Assembly. We had the same in the Edinburgh International Conference in 2012 and then 2013. During those assemblies, we've had video conferencing, and we've linked into Hamburg, and we've linked into Ireland, and we've linked into people in Inverness. So there's been a variety of different ways of communicating with older people and making connections. The assembly that was planned for 2013 was on the 5th of December, and this was the day when the storm came about, so we weren't able to actually execute the whole assembly, but we managed to put on part of it. And then we organised seminars in Edinburgh, Glasgow and Aberdeen, and we're now preparing for the assembly in the Scottish Parliament debating chamber on the 31st of October this year. Here is a list of the organisations that are part of the Assembly Committee. Too many to read out, but you can see that there's an awful lot of them. And the committee meets about every 2 months. It's chaired by Tom Burney. He's also the chairperson of the University of the Third Age. So Tom Burney and I work really quite closely together to organise the events and the arrangements. So what do we do? Well, we get involved. We've met and we've lobbied ministers. We've had meetings with Alex Neil, and we've had meetings with Shona Robertson. We've attended the cross-party groups on older people and ageing and learning. We're part of the UK Advisory Forum on Ageing, which is linked into Westminster. And we've recently been invited to join the DWP group, which is going to be looking at pensions. We've also had opportunities to meet with officials from the Scottish Government and serve on committees and meet other people from universities. And these are some of the examples of the issues that we've tackled. Reshaping care for older people. When we've asked older people about their the issues that are concerning them, many of them have come forward with their worries about some aspects of care and people being cared for in care homes, in hospital and in their own homes. But we also know that there are many older people who've given us very positive views about care arrangements, so they're a kind of mixed picture. We've recently been concerned about hospital signage at Haymyres and Monklands, and it seems to have taken an awful long time to actually try to have people recognise that good signage is important to people. The Liverpool care pathway was causing concern for many older people, and of course that no longer exists, but there will be more developments in this area. And then older people were telling us about their views about access to GPs and how difficult it was for some people to access the GPs and have a reasonable consultation. We've looked at the impact of welfare reform on older people and got people's views about this last year. And we've also looked at the Public Bodies Joint Working Scotland Bill. We have newsletters and we have a website, and we have the word of mouth that sort of travels around, and sometimes that travels really very fast and sometimes people are kind of saying things which can be critical but also very positive. We're just recruiting an expert on media and communications that will help us to build a profile of the Assembly. And again, we will have the connections with people in the Scottish Parliament and the government and COSLA and Westminster, what we do. So thank you very much, and here's some contact details and about our websites. Thank you.